Gerar was an ancient city-state and a commercial center in the south border of Canaan, called in Genesis as the royal city of Gerar. It was a lodging place and a commercial center to caravans from Yemen, Egypt, and Syria to Asia and Europe. It had a Mediterranean seaport. Gerar was noted on the Madaba map southwest of Beersheba. Gerar means many pottery containers and kitchenware. Gerar was its earlier name, meant the mother of pottery containers. The soil was convenient to make claywares. Genesis recorded that the valley of Gerar had a good agricultural land that Isaac reaped 100-fold. The area has a moderate four-season climate near the sea. Passing caravans from the Negev and Sinai desert founded in Gerar an open pastoral region where water was available through wells and valleys. Landowners hosted charity watering fountains. Merchants and immigrants crossed freely into the land of Canaan. Caravan met at a natural bridge to cross the Gerar Valley south to north. It was an early crossroad for traveling caravans. The ancient road between Beersheba and Gerar was to follow the southern bank of the valley, Tariq el-Wadi. Gerar was a domain within the land of Canaan. The territory of the Canaanite extended from Sidon to Gerar in one version, and a larger territory in another times. Archaeologists found a kingdom that stretched from the Turkish mountains in the north to the river Nile in the south. Canaan was a good land, flowing with milk and honey, Genesis said. Sparse settlements and towns were along the coast of the Dead Sea, Jordan Valley, and along the trade route at the Great Sea. City-states in a confederation to represent Canaan. Traders and travelers moved freely except to Egypt. Religious practices were never an issue. Social system was free of regulations, and women were free. Ashtaroth was the goddess of Gerar. She and other goddesses were exhibited half-naked, engraved on temple columns. Temples encouraged the trade in incense and spices. A clay object showed musicians and spectacles. The Canaanite society had a language, a style of pottery. It had existed for 1,000 years. 200 towns were settled by the Canaanites in 2000 BC. Gerar city-state was ruled by King Abu Malik in Arabic. The same family was mentioned in Shechem and Gerar again. It seems that family ruled the land of Canaan for some time. The Bible tells us of two stories of Abraham and Isaac in Gerar in relation to King Abimelech. Abraham and Sarah arrived to Gerar from the Negev. Sarah was childless for 20 years. They camped first at Wadi Sharia near a village in Deir el-Balah. Owners of the land and well complained about the overuse of their well and land to the king, who arrived at the disputed well. Abraham and Sarah met the king of Gerar to explain their case. The king asked Abraham about his female companion. He replied that it was his sister. Sarah confirmed she was a fair woman to look upon. The king proposed to marry Sarah, and Abraham accepted, and she accepted. Abraham enjoyed the patronage of the king of Gerar as his brother-in-law. As it seems, Sarah lived at the king's palace for some time. Abraham was seen praying near Gerar for the release of Sarah. The king must have heard of Abraham's prophecy, and Sarah must have confessed to him. Genesis refers to a dream where God told Abimelech that Sarah and Abraham were a husband and wife. Abimelech restored Sarah to her husband Abraham and gave Abraham gifts of livestock and servants. He also gave him 1,000 pieces of silver to reprove Sarah by covering of the eyes. King Abimelech was called again over a water well dispute, and he advised Abraham and Sarah to move to Beersheba. Later, the king and his chief visited Abraham and Sarah in Beersheba, although Genesis recorded that there was no sexual relationship between Sarah and Abimelech. And it happened again to Isaac and Rebekah, who were married for 20 years with no children in Beersheba. When a drought hit the Negev desert, Isaac had a dream to go to Gerar and ask for the help of King Abimelech. Isaac and his wife Rebekah arrived at the big city, and people asked him concerning his female companion, and he said she was his sister. The king arrived and offered to marry Rebekah from Isaac. Abimelech took Rebekah and married her as his wife and offered his guest outer house to brother-in-law Isaac to dwell in it. The story goes as one day King Abimelech looks out the window and he saw Isaac sporting with Rebekah. The king calls Isaac and scolds him for sporting with his wife. Isaac confessed that Rebekah was in fact his wife, not his sister. The king gave Rebekah back to Isaac and they were proclaimed safe. Abimelech advised Isaac to cultivate some land near Gerar Valley. The king told him he could sow and reap and eat the fruits of the ground until the days of the famine should have passed by. Isaac moved on up the Gerar River Valley and dwelt there for 1 year. While the drought was replaced by rain, Isaac decided to move back to Beersheba. Abimelech with 2 aides arrived to visit Isaac in Beersheba. The 3 visitors enjoyed food and the company of Isaac and Rebekah for the night. In the morning, Isaac and Rebekah prepared breakfast to the royal guests who departed. Isaac prayed, according to Genesis, that his wife become pregnant after being barren for 20 years of marriage. The text in Genesis made a faithful to believe that God had actually caused the pregnancy of Rebekah. King Abimelech seems to be corrupted socially, although traditional kings and leaders made alliances through marriages. He came personally to investigate a dispute and be part of the solution. Gerar was a bustling town near the sea, attracting travelers and immigrants. The society was free of regulations except common sense. The kingdom was secure for a king with 1 or 2 advisors to roam the streets of Gerar. Egyptian propaganda showed Canaan as a corrupt system where sexual activities and prostitutions are practiced in their temples. Thus the story that Canaanite intermarried with giants to produce an underworld society. Propaganda spread in Egypt against the Hyksos as people who intermarried with demons and people of hell. So were all the Canaanites. Egyptians considered the Hyksos as invaders and described them as devil worshippers and savage who took advantage in the weak Egyptian farmers. Pharaoh Ahmose with his army marched toward Gerar. The defenders fought for 6 years. At the end, Gerar collapsed to Pharaoh Ahmose. Israelites that arrived after the destruction of Gerar in 1473 were of the same opinion of the Canaanite society as Ahmose was and as severe in their invasion. Archaeologists are not in agreement on the present locations of ancient Gerar domain or the royal city of Gerar. A team identified it in Tel Harur, where a Canaanite pottery was found. Tel Abu Huraira, which is Tel Harur, the largest tell in the area and containing pottery dating from the Middle Bronze Age and later periods. Scholars have identified it with Tel Sharia, 19 kilometers northwest of Beersheba, or with Tel Yama further to the west. No doubt, the site of Tel al-Ujul points to a major palace in Gerar. There exists another major palace north of the valley. Tel al-Ujul is located to the south of the valley of Gaza, west of the Cross Bridge. The domain of Gerar lies within the area adjacent and inhabited by Palestinian refugees on 3 camps, and also a British cemetery to soldiers who fell in the Battle of Gaza. This historical treasure within the region is covered by the Palestinian Authority, the Israeli establishment, and the international organizations. Still to be excavated ancient palaces and ancient structures scattered around and neglected. Historical sites that record our human history is caught between the warring factions. Some people would race to develop and promote a historical region with Mediterranean beach resorts, while inhabitants are so busy fighting over a religion in doubt, politics guided by security and fear.